On this episode of Before Brunch, we're talking about living it up in our 20s. From dating and friendships to careers and lifestyle, we're throwing it back. Today's guests include CEO of Asante Consulting, Arkeya Brown, mental health professional, Monica Folks, and founder of Black Girls Wine, Shayla Varnado. Thanks for tuning into Before Brunch TV. I'm so excited about today's conversation. We're kind of like throwing it back to our 20s. What was life like? Talking about the ups and downs and what we've learned now that we're just a little bit older. So my guests today are Arkeya, Monica, and Shayla. Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah,
so this is, look, y'all, we get to like throw it back and have some flashbacks and dream about those days. So talk about like what your life was like in your 20s and maybe like specifically like those early 20s, like 20 to 25, 26.
How graphic can I be?
Hey, look, go as deep as you want.
Listen, oh God, early 20s. I mean, I would say it was a bit of an archbishop, but in hindsight, you look back at the stuff that you did in your 20s, and it's just kind of like, did I really do that? Like, why would I do that? So it was interesting, but I feel like I bounced back and learned quickly. So thank God for that.
Yeah.
For me, I would say my 20s were a free fall. It was just like whatever happened, and even the lessons you should have learned then, you kind of did it again 2 or 3 more times,
4 or 5
or 6. And so that was my 20s in a nutshell. Anyway,
I think mine got a little ghetto for a while. No, because I grew up having all of these plans I wanted for my life. And then you graduate college and you're like, oh, yeah, none of this is going the way I thought it was going to go. So it was just all over the place. Yeah. But I figured it out later, but it was ghetto.
Yeah, so all of us have been to college, and so that first part of your 20s, you're still in school. Mm-hmm. But then when you get out from like, let's say 22 to 25, like you really think you've grown. You're like, oh, I got this, I'm good. Meanwhile, you're like you said, it's a show.
Yeah.
And so like I think back, some of my fondest memories are legit like relationships and things I was doing and people I had no business doing stuff with.
Yeah.
And so what was your perspective then on like dating and sex and relationships? Because I know I was just like, oh, I'm doing my thing, I think I'm grown. And then look back and I'm like, oh my God, if this person ever says anything about like me messing with them, I would just be mortified. So like, what was y'all's perspective of that?
Well, not many people know, but I got married in my early 20s and was.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Did I know that?
No, most people don't know.
I've known you for a while.
I know, you know me since high school. Look, it's been
holy crap. Okay, tell me
almost
more.
2 decades since I've known. Yeah, I know. So most people don't know that I got married and then got divorced, and I feel like my perspective going into my mid 20s was very jaded. And I kind of was not even thinking about another person in my future long term after that. So dating was a little different for me, and I didn't feel like, none of my friends were married. So it wasn't like I really had anybody I could talk to about how I was feeling or that I could relate to about it. But I feel like you learn a lot going through divorce. And so you learn yourself very quickly. So I think very young, I learned how I wanted to date and what I wanted and wasn't willing to settle for a lot earlier than most people do.
Yep. Wait, so did you get married like because you wanted to?
I was dating a guy and the relationship was abusive, and I think in my immaturity I never stopped to think about what I wanted, and then you think you're in love and his father married us. My parents didn't even know. And so I went home and told my parents, and
I probably lost it.
Yeah, well, they were actually very like, my parents are like very, I have the best parents ever. Like they were very like,
you sure do.
Well, congratulations. But of course the second time around was different. I let mom plan everything. I gave them free reign, but nobody really knew because we did it in the house on the 4th of July. It was like, then we went to a cookout right afterward. Like it was there was no like celebration very nonchalant of the moment. Yeah, it was very nonchalant. I regretted it shortly after just because I realized we wanted different things. So I think where most people are trying to figure out in their 20s, like I think he said to me like a few weeks after we got married, like, oh, now we can have kids. And at that moment I thought to myself, like I had never thought about that. And so very early I was like, okay, after that was final, I don't want to date men with kids or that want kids, because I knew that was something I didn't want. So I feel like all of the lessons that a lot of people learn later, I learned fast.
Yeah.
So
Monica, what was your perspective on like dating and sex and relationships in your 20s?
I didn't have a perspective, and that was part of the problem. I learned now that, you have to be intentional. You need to be intentional in any type of relationship. And definitely when I was younger, it wasn't. Like I said, it was a free fall. Whatever happened, happened. If he was cute, I talked to him. I didn't care if he had a background. I didn't care if he couldn't get a job, because I knew what I could do.
I had a job.
Yeah, look, I know I'm good. But, as you get older, you recognize, like, oh, hold up, bro. You can't even get financial aid, so
Yeah.
I can't do nothing with that, So for me, it was learning to do what was right. And sometimes stepping outside of that comfort zone. Because for me, my choice in men back then was comfortable for me. And as you grow and become more of who you're going to be, you learn that, oh no, I do deserve the best. I will have the best. I will work for the best, and I won't settle. Things that were cute in your 20s, like I said, hanging up the phone and just being disrespectful, there's nothing cute about that.
Yeah.
And when you're younger, you feel like, oh, it's a sign of love. No, it is not. So,
It's a sign about you about to get effed up.
yeah, real quick. So, definitely being intentional and learning how to place your values at the top and yourself at the top at all times.
Yeah. How about you, Arkia?
So I think I went kind of backwards. I had what I thought was a traditional family growing up, so I instantly wanted to be in long-term relationships. So I was totally backwards than all my friends. We're in college, they're dating around, they're getting explored, they're doing all this kind of stuff. And I was super rigid because I was like, oh, well, I'm supposed to, just have this one boyfriend. But like Monica was saying, I started kind of accepting things that I didn't deserve because I felt like I was supposed to stay in that situation. I felt like my life was supposed to be a certain way. I made this plan when I was 16. It was a 10-year plan. And I'm like, this is what I need to do. And so it was allowing myself to not grow. I didn't have a chance to really experiment and grow. And so later in my 20s, once, the whole relationship situation kind of fell apart, I'm like, all right, I got to take some time, stop, figure out what's going on, and learn myself, because I did not love myself. I thought I did. But when I learned to love myself, I realized I wasn't. And so then it was kind of a struggle, because it's like all your friends now are starting to settle down and you're like out here.
You back in the streets.
Yeah. Like I'm in these streets and I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, this is just all wrong. But we all have to take our own different paths. But it was weird.
Yeah. I think in my 20s, I really realized like the difference between somebody actually dating you and y'all just like kicking it. Like, in your younger, like, oh, like we're dating, you call it dating, right? Meanwhile, like we're really just kicking it. Right? Like, I only see you during certain times. And so I never forget, I was like talking to somebody at the time, a little bit older than I was. I never forget I got him a Christmas present, because I'm thinking like, wear whatever. And like I was so like upset when I didn't get a Christmas present back, but I was just like, here I am thinking it's more than what it is. And I think when we were younger, we're like, oh, this is great, we're dating. And meanwhile, but looking back now, I'm like, we were not dating. Like, you ain't never really take me anywhere like that. We didn't, we weren't traveling or doing anything. So realizing that now, I'm like, dang, I want my gift back.
You didn't even, it's like T.I. when he.
Were you in any type of relationship that you were just, it was an eye-opening experience for you in your 20s?
Oh yeah, for me, definitely. I dated someone who I knew my mom would not approve of, and definitely my dad. And I actually was warned by this person's parents. Yeah, and they were like, listen, run while you can. And
the parents tell you run. Listen.
And it was the mama. And it was the mama. And this, you already know how the mama-son relationship goes. So I should have listened, but I didn't know then what I know now. And you just, it became, for me to rebel was fun in my 20s. So to not listen was like just the thing to do. Like I went and got my thumb pierced just because my mom said don't do it.
That was the thing then too.
Yeah, it was. I went and did it, and I came home, and my dumbness, I did it the day before Thanksgiving. My whole family joked me because I couldn't eat nothing.
I've been there.
Couldn't eat anything. So just, learning to start to listen. And when people tell you things, they're telling you for a reason. And especially the old heads, they do know what they're talking about.
They do.
They see it and smell it a mile away. So for me in that relationship, I thought that I could make him do what I wanted him to do.
We all think we can change him.
Yeah, like, I'm not looking for this. Oh, well, you gonna look for it by the time I'm done.
Because I'm what you need.
Yes. And after a while of just saying, okay, I'm gonna keep trying. For a year goes, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And finally, over those stages of development, right, you finally learn and start to get older and like, hold on, something ain't right. This is not changing, and it has actually gotten worse.
Yeah.
So, a chick like me, I pack my stuff up middle of the night and dip. And took my rent money back out of the drawer. Yes, I need all that.
And stuff like this shows up in friendships in our 20s too. Like, what kind of things did y'all experience in friendships and learn that was kind of a hard pill to swallow?
I had some interesting friendships, I'll say. So I think in my earlier 20s, I shrank myself a lot, struggled with like body image issues and things like that. So I had a lot of friends who did a lot of things, and they were, out in public and just doing a lot of stuff. And I started finding myself like trying to people please for a little while. And then getting myself in situations where it was like, I wasn't voicing how I felt. Even, because it's like, I'm all about loyalty. Like I grew up, you have to be loyal, you have to be loyal. So you'll find your friends and it's like, you're not calling them on their stuff, or I'm the person that's gonna be there no matter what you need. But I had a lot of, some friends, I won't say a lot, that were not there the way I needed them to be. And I remember going through a situation where my grandmother passed away when I was like in my early 20s. And I was so upset because my mother, like all her friends were there. And I'm like, where are these people that I'm always here for? And I think that was a turning point for me. But I did learn a lot about myself. So one of my friends actually told me, she was like, I don't know how to be there for the strongest person I know. Like you're the person that I know that's going to be there no matter what. You always keep it together. You're always composed no matter what happens. So I don't know how to be there for you. So that really did teach me about the kind of friend I was as well, and what I showed and my vulnerabilities to my friends. And then also what kind of friends I just did not want to deal with. Like, I'm not about to deal with just a bunch of like craziness, shenanigans. I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna turn up, I'm gonna be live, but I want good people around me. I want people like me who are gonna be down for me. So I had to cut some people off, and that was hard, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I feel like for me, I learned to date smarter earlier, right? The friendships, I feel like I learned that real late in life. I feel like I had some like real bad friends that I held on to, that I didn't need to. Probably the hardest one in my 20s was I dated a guy, and him and I were long over, and a friend of mine and I, like, we were so close and so cool. And then all of a sudden, like, she just stopped calling me, stopped everything. And I really like loved this girl. Yeah. And I didn't figure out why until like, months down the road, after she had been kind of like ignoring my phone calls, not responding to my texts, stuff like that, that I was on Snapchat and I see her and the guy together. Oh. And I was like, oh, so this is why we aren't friends. And so like later that year, I had sent her a message and was just kind of like, because our birthdays were so close, we used to do everything together. So Facebook was showing me all these memories throughout the month and I was just like, man. And so I sent her a message and she totally like didn't read it, because I guess she thought it would be about the guy. But I didn't care about him. Like, I was married by then, married a second time by then. Like, I didn't care. I was like, I miss my friend. You could have just talked to me. But instead of talking to me or anything, like, she just kind of dipped. And I feel like from there, it was like quite a few friends that just did some really shady things. And I let it go on in my 20s. I feel like it was, I don't know if it was the loyalty. Yeah. I don't know if it was because I feel like, you try to make excuses for your friends. Give people some grace, give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Like, I tried, but I definitely held on to some friendships way too long.
As you get older, we're in our late 20s, now you creeping 30s. I'm like,
Right.
why y'all still doing the same? Like, it's fun, like you said, kid. Like, we can turn up, we can have a good time, but I gotta go to work in the morning. I'm not staying up drinking until 1 a.m. It's just, you know, it's like people don't grow, and so sometimes something like super explosive doesn't happen, but it's like you just kind of grow apart because we not on the same wavelength anymore.
Right. Yeah, something similar happened to me in my 20s. My best friend and I have actually been best friends since first grade. Like, no arguments, no nothing. Like, it's just perfect. She and I complement each other in so many ways, and we're kind of opposites but alike in a lot of the things that we enjoy to do and doing. So in my 20s, when I finished that relationship wasn't done yet. One of those
a break.
Yeah, and those 3, 4. Yeah, we were living together, but we weren't together type deal. Yeah, that. And I went through a depression. And my friend, straight out of school, landed in her career, so she was doing very well financially. Me, on the other hand, I had made some decisions that weren't the best, and it's impacted the financial situation. So I'll never forget, like, she was been going on trips for her birthday before most of us.
That was a thing.
Right, you know, and I never could go. And I found myself pulling away from her. And she calls me one day and she was like, hey, listen, let's go out to eat. She said, because we need to talk. And mind you, I said, we've never had to have a talk, you know. So we go and we sit down, and she confronted me about what I got her for Christmas. And it's a designer that was well known during that time. She brought me a purse. And I gave her a pillow from Five and Below with a picture of she and I in it that we both liked.
So thoughtful.
Right.
And it was.
Thoughtful.
Right? So I was ashamed of the gift, and I was just like, I have to get her something, right? And so when we kind of talked about it, she didn't know. I said, girl, just this week, my lights were out. I said, I'm glad you took me out to eat because I hadn't to eat tonight. And she kind of looked and she was like, I didn't know. And I remember being grateful for a few things. For one, that I trusted her enough to be able to tell her that about myself. And I'll never forget at her graduation party, because I was one of those December grads. She graduated on time. And I remember I was in the deepness of my depression. And there's a picture that comes up in Facebook memories. And I shared it with her. And I said, you remember this picture? When I tell you it took everything in me to come to that party, it took everything in me for multiple reasons. But the depression and the symptoms that come with it were the reason why. It had nothing to do with her. And I'm glad to have had a friend that I could talk to.
We put on these like masks and think that everything's okay. Like, you know, we can put on the makeup, we can put on the flat clothes and look great, but think about like how many times, you know, you're out partying, you're like drinking yourself to death because you're so sad, you're so depressed. You're in a relationship that you're not happy in, and you're just trying to like survive. So kudos to your friend for even like bringing it up, because she noticed something in you. And while the conversation, how she was bringing it up to you, it was probably initially maybe going to be negative, it turned her whole perspective around because you still always showed up for her.
Absolutely. I tried my best. So forever, you know, grateful for that relationship, because that's what it is. And she works in a male-dominated field. So there aren't a lot of coworkers who are Black women like her. So she got one about 2 years ago. And she called me all excited. I said, well, you tell her you already have a best friend.
That's what my best friend
I
is.
mean, so excited. I'm like, okay.
Like, you're too excited, sis.
Calm down. She can be cool.
Yeah, so we went out to eat with her, you know, a few months or whatever later. And when I was introduced to her, she says, I know, and you're already her best friend. I said,
as long as you know.
I am the friend that you have to prep for, you know? Okay.
We all have friends like that. Yes. I'm looking at one back there. We all have friends like that.
Yes, territorial. This is mine.
Yeah.
I'm serious about my best friend. I do not play about
Yeah.
my best friend. And she's the same about me. She'd be like, yeah, that's not your best friend. You have one.
Yeah.
This kind of leads me to my next question about like decision making in your 20s. I mean, the things where I had a conversation with somebody, it's like, hey, in your 20s, you're kind of living like in the moment, and like your 30s, it's like you're planning for the future. So talk about some of like what your difference is in decision making in your 20s versus your 30s now. Like all of you all have started your own individual like entity and business now too, but I don't know if that was happening in your 20s. Like talk about that.
For me, it was. When I graduated, got into corporate America, I had all intentions of moving up so that I could quit. So after 2 years at the company, I tripled my salary. I did that for 3 years, and then I quit my job for the first time. Met my current amazing husband. And, you know, even in talking about dating with intention, I said to him at 26, like, hey, I'm going to quit my job again one day. Is that something you can handle? Can you support the kid? And he was like, yeah. So for me, I was very decisive in my 20s. I knew what I wanted. I knew that I would build my own empire, that it would be a thing. So for me, I was really decisive. I'm proud of myself for my 20s in doing that. Look, I handled that much better than some other things.
Yeah. And what did that lead you to create?
Well, I created Black Girls Wine. So in 2016, I founded Black Girls Wine, and 2019, Black Girls Wine Society, a national organization of women, 50 plus chapters. And I love that I get to work with and serve Black women every single day. So I thank God that I did some sewing in my 20s.
And I even think my 20s, I'm like, in my 20s, I wasn't even thinking about wine. It was like all about like shots and liquor. And we were drinking really cheap wine. So kudos to you for creating a space for women now who want to explore that at an earlier age and have like, you know, a nice glass of wine and know what the hell they're talking about. So,
Right.
yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you. Look, 20-something-year-old Shayla was smarter than the early 20s. So we can thank God that the lessons were learned.
Yes. Monica, how about you?
So one of the things I remember about my 20s is, like you said, just not being intentional and not just going with the flow, right? So for me, planning is one of the things that I learned to do. So definitely learning to listen and writing my plans down and following through and not saying to myself, we kind of were having this conversation earlier, oh, well, I'm 20, I have time.
You look up.
It goes real fast.
Right.
Real fast. Because now I'm like, what I'm going to do for my 40th? So, which is going to come quick too.
Right.
So, you have to be just being intentional and being true to you. Don't let other people, you know, society put you in a box of what they feel you should be doing. And I learned a valuable lesson with that is costly with school and college. So I look at my transcript, college I went to, they have me come back every once in a while and talk to the psychology freshman class. And I print out my transcript and I hand it out to everyone. Of course, not in the last year. But I have them calculate all of my withdrawals and Fs. And it calculates to almost $30,000.
Woo!
Oh.
They don't know at that time that transcript belongs to me.
Wow.
So we talk about what did they think this person was doing. Okay? And y'all should hear them how they were talking about me. I wasn't doing that, but I'm gonna tell you later. So it was a lot of not being intentional, missing deadlines. I wasted so much money because I didn't go withdraw for a class. Not thinking that, you know, it's going to be on your transcript. It's going to stick here. So to be able to be 2 degrees out from a bachelor's is amazing and nothing but planning because, that transcript, they would have looked at me like, I'm surprised she even graduated.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
Wow.
How about you, Arkia?
I think for my decision making, I stopped taking into account everybody else. Everything I did was like, okay, what is this person gonna think? Does this go against what I said I wanted to do? Things like that. So now I really don't. I won't say I don't care, but I don't care. I think I was very fearful when I was younger, I had a lot of things and passions that I wanted to do, but it didn't fit with what I wanted to do, or either I was scared to be the face of something. And I paid for that, because now it's like, 10 years later, and I'm starting a business in those exact same things. That now I'm living and looking like these people who've done this for so long. I could have been there. Like, I could have done those things. So I've learned to make decisions in spite of the fear that I have. I've learned to be able to be comfortable with myself, live out loud, and just do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I don't want to look 10 years later and still say, man, I was really good at that, but I didn't do it. So I think now I allow my fear to fuel me a little bit more than I did in the past. Before, it would just make me like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to be the person out there in anything. I just want to be in the background. I used to say that all the time, and I had so many from various organizations. People would try to put me in the forefront because I worked so hard, I did so well. And I was like, I don't want to be the president of that. I don't want to do that. Like, I just like to be in the background. I want to be the person that supports you. And I had to get to a point where I realized, like, you are dope. Like, you have to learn how to stand out for yourself and take advantage of all of these passions that you have. And so I think that's the space that I'm in now.
And what did that lead you to create?
So Asante Consulting Group, also known as the Purpose Pusher. It's a business consulting agency for helping people do it scared and, getting out there and finding their footing within their business and things like that.
Oh, look at that. You're going to help other women find their purpose, something that you were scared to do.
Right.
I feel you on that fear thing. And Monica, you said, like, when you write stuff down, it just seems so big. Like, I wanted to do some certain things in my 20s. Like, I wanted to move. Like, I wanted to go to New York City. I was going to be like Oprah. Like, that was going to be my thing. And I was afraid to, like, take that leap to even just move, like, by myself. And I was, like, in a relationship at the time. And then you just make different decisions on the account of other people. And I wish I wouldn't have done that. But at the same time, it was a learning lesson. You get into some very humbling situations where you're just like, you know what? If I would have received that then, I would not be ready for it. And I probably would have made an ass of myself. So I'm happy where I am now and moving towards it, like, at a, it seems like a slower pace, but it's like probably going to be more long lasting and more rewarding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's just some advice that you can give to young girls in their 20s right now who are just like freaking out about life and what they're going through?
I would probably say I like the moving in spite of fear. My answer to this question is always the same, and it's to fail as fast as you can. Because I've learned so much from all of my failures, and they have really pushed me to where I am now. So if you want to do it scared, do it anyway, and fail as fast as you can, because you always learn from them.
I would say be fearless, be bold, confident, and be yourself. I sleep well every night knowing that I gave life all I could today, and I was myself. And I didn't pretend to be anyone else. I didn't wish to be anyone else. Being comfortable in your skin and knowing that, okay, I'm making this decision, I'm going to have to live with the consequence, good or bad. And knowing that in your 20s will prepare you. Definitely help for your 30s. And just own it. You have to own your own fish. That's all it is. At the end of the day, you have to own it because it's yours. Sometimes it smells good, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
I think for me, doing it scared, like we talked about a second ago, just put yourself out there. What's the worst that could happen? Don't worry about what other people are thinking. Don't, worry about who's gonna support you, who's not gonna support you. Just do it, because there's a lane for you in anything that you want to do. There's people out there who are gonna connect with you. It doesn't matter how many people are doing the same thing that you're doing. And like you said, fail as fast as you can, because I have learned so much from just my failures. They've taught me so much more about myself than I think anything else has.
I agree with everything. I would say figure out who you are sooner than later. Because the sooner you figure out who you are, the less of yourself you're going to compromise in the future. The sooner you learn that, you'll save yourself a lot of heartache and pain. Thank you, ladies, for this amazing conversation. It's good, reminiscing. If we didn't have COVID, we could go to the club after this. But I appreciate y'all, and thank you all for watching. And you can find more information about us on our website and on our social media at Before Brunch TV. We'll see you next time.